Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's able to join the live stream today. We have a little bit of, we're looking into an issue with maxing out the capacity. So if you're able to join me this morning, welcome to the show. I have the enviable position of talking about all the great new features that we're going to be presenting in RenderMan 24 today. And before we start, I'm going to give a few items. If you don't want to keep hearing little beeping noises, you can click your little bell icon in the upper corner to mute notifications. If you want to ask questions during the presentation, it's best to do that in the questions tab. We'll answer them at the end. And we'll also be posting some fun polls for people to participate in during the presentation. So before we go any further, I wanted to show some of the great work that our customers have done with RenderMan this year. And I'll do that by showing our 2020 show reel. So let me find that media. And here's the RenderMan show reel for 2020. That was great. It's always inspiring to see what all the great artists can do with RenderMan. So I didn't introduce myself before I started, but my name is Wayne Wooten, and I'm the Software Development Manager for the RenderMan Products Group. And I'm going to go over some slides talking about some of the new features in RenderMan 24. And I'll point you to various sessions we're having throughout the week where you can learn a lot more details about each of these great new features. And then at the end, I'm going to bring some of the engineers on stage and we'll give some demos of some of these new features. So a little bit about what we're doing and why we're here. We're here to serve the RenderMan community. We have a lot of ways of helping out the RenderMan community. We have our RenderMan Answers portion of our website where the community can ask questions and interact with one another. We have the RenderMan forums for our commercial customers where commercial customers can ask questions and log bugs and issues that they might have with RenderMan. Another thing we do with our community is we hold challenges, and this is the winner from our most recent Ship Shape Challenge. It's titled "Oh Good, the Bus is Here" by Yinning Carl Lee. It's a great piece. We're also this week going to start a new RenderMan challenge. And that is going to be during a session on Thursday, September 3rd at 9 a.m. And you'll want to tune in there to see what's great in the new challenge and some of the new prizes for that challenge. At the same time in that session, we're going to be launching a whole new set of RenderMan training materials to help bring a lot of new training to the community at large. So let's talk a little bit about where we're at with RenderMan today before we talk about the future. Today, we have RenderMan 23, and that's based on a new RIS interactive rendering architecture that we first released back in July of 2018. This architecture was extensively used at Pixar for the production of both Onward and Soul, our feature-length animated movies that came out this year, or well, Soul will be released later this year. And we then released version 23 on that architecture and updated that on December 2019. And we've continued to push maintenance releases of version 23. And the most recent one was just this past August, 23.4. It includes some significant upgrades in RenderMan for Katana, RenderMan for Houdini, Solaris, and RenderMan for Maya. But let's talk about what you're here for today, and that's RenderMan 24. Like all good pieces of software, RenderMan starts with a really solid foundation. So I'll talk a little bit about the platform that we're going forward with RenderMan 24. The software is going to be based on what's called the Visual Effects Society reference platform, and we're aiming for the 2019 platform definition with RenderMan 24. That includes writing your plugins in C++14. We'll be shifting to OpenEXR 2.3. We'll support OpenVDB 6.x. Important one is OpenColorIO 1.1.1. That's a little bit past the spec, but it includes a lot of nice new features we need. We've supported Python bindings for quite some time. And with 24, we'll be supporting bindings for 2.7, 3.6, 3.7, and 3.8. We're also key supporters of OpenImageIO and OSL. And we'll be aiming to support USD 20.08 with our Hydra delegates. This version of RenderMan will be supported on Linux CentOS 7, Windows 10, and macOS 10.14 and higher. So one of the first great new features of RenderMan 24 is a new statistics system. And we're going to be talking about this in more detail in a session called RenderMan 24 for Technical Directors. And that's going to be Thursday, September 3rd at noon. One of the great things about the new stat system is that it's live. You can connect to a render as it's running on the farm, or even your interactive session in Katana, Maya, Houdini, and point a web page at that live rendering and get all kinds of great stats, like how much memory it's using over time, how many rays it's casting, what it's shading. And it's dynamic, you know, as part of being live is that it's dynamic. So you'll see constant updates as the render progresses. It's also extensible. You'll be able to write your own plugins that you can listen to various pieces of data if you wanted to instrument your own plugins to add new stats to the system. And again, more details at the session on Thursday. Another great improvement with RenderMan 24 is that our pattern library is now completely rewritten to take advantage of OSL. And not only have we rewritten it to take advantage of OSL, we've also added a lot of new patterns. One of those is phaser noise, and you can see an example of that here in the picture. It's a new noise technique used by ILM in the Pasana Desert in the production of the most recent Star Wars movie. We've also added hex tiling. It's a great way to seamlessly blend tiled textures. And we have a new unified bump mapping scheme, which has also been utilized in this picture. You can tell that it's a bump map because, you know, the bump doesn't go to the edges of the teapot. The great new thing about our OSL implementation is that it fully utilizes SIMD execution. And so if you have an Intel processor with AVX 512, it'll take advantage of those instruction sets. We currently don't support closures, but we do support a debug closure. So new in RenderMan 24 is you'll be able to emit arbitrary output variables from your OSL patterns in RenderMan 24. And one of the great things about rewriting our pattern library in OSL is that you can use your same OSL patterns in RAS that you can use in our new upcoming XPU renderer. These new patterns are actually going to be presented in the Llama session, because this is a session on improved shading techniques. And that will be later today, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Make sure you register for that one if you're interested in either Llama or OSL updates. Another great feature that a lot of folks have asked for is ACES support. So we now have built-in color support as of RenderMan 24. It uses open color IO integration, and we fold the new color support into our lights, into our patterns, into our textures, and into our image display tool. And you can see an example in the screenshot here. A lot more will be discussed about the implementations and the pipeline implications of the color management support in the RenderMan 24 for TDs on Thursday at noon. Even more great new features is, this has been talked about some in the past, but there will be another session talking about it even more. It's Discovering RenderMan Stylized Looks, Thursday, September 3rd at 11. And the great thing about this set of shaders and display filters and sample filters is that you can customize your own looks. You can utilize cartoon style shading. You could emulate kind of hatched lighting effects like Dylan Sisson has done in this great picture here. You can get painterly looks with brush strokes. You can do all kinds of great and wonderful things with these stylized looks. And I know a lot of folks are really excited about this. Another great new feature that's getting a lot of people excited is something called layered materials. These are a set of networkable BXDF nodes developed by ILM that allows you the flexibility of basically creating your own materials through both kind of mixing and stacking. So you can mix parameters into your shaders, and you can stack. So you can do like clear coat or varnish and things like that. It's really flexible. It's really extensible. You can create your own custom nodes. And you can even emulate most of our existing monolithic BXDFs through combinations of these Llama nodes. Llama will be presented in the session later today at 11 a.m. and it'll discuss all of these great things, and we'll also be discussing how it fits within the new Material X frameworks. And finally, one of the most anticipated new features in RenderMan 24 is XPU. We'll be giving a significant update on XPU later today, or on Thursday, on advances in RenderMan XPU at September 3rd, 11 a.m. And we'll be discussing Flow, an internal look dev process at Pixar. And we'll also talk about integration of this into our other DCCs, i.e. Maya, Katana, and Houdini, a little bit later in this session. So that brings us to updates to all of the applications that you use in order to make RenderMan do great things. We'll start off with Maya. We'll be upgrading our RenderMan for Maya to add all of these new features that I've discussed. You'll have your Llama shading workflows. Here's an example of Llama shading network to do the Sterling car here. We'll add the features built in for the ACES color workflows. Not only have the RenderMan patterns be rewritten in OSL, but all of the old school Maya shading patterns like Maya file and Maya noises have all been converted to OSL as well. I'll also mention the new OSL networks, and you'll get NPR stylized shading and the ability to do look development via XPU. We also have new improvements to Houdini. Again, we'll have Llama and the new OSL patterns. But most importantly, SideFX is working on a beta of a new product, Houdini 18.5, and we're working hard with SideFX to add new support for Solaris in 18.5. And with this will come better AOV management. You'll now be able to render deep data from Solaris, And we've also brought our preset browser to Solaris. And there'll be many more bug fixes and improvements for Solaris with Houdini 18.5. In addition, with RenderMan for Houdini, you'll get NPR stylized shading and the ACES workflows, and of course, XPU look dev capabilities. And Katana, one of the best lighting workflow tools out there. It's used by most of the large studios for all of their lighting needs. The Foundry is working on a beta for Katana 4.0. This is a significant new release that brings a lot of great new user interface and user experience capabilities. You can get a little screenshot here, and we'll show a demo of it a little bit later. We'll bring our new OSL, shading, Llama, NPR, ACES, and XPU to Katana as well. So at this point, I would say we're done with the presentation, but there is one more interesting announcement. This week, we're announcing a new integration for RenderMan, and that is Blender. So with RenderMan 24, we're going to offer Blender support for 2.83 and actually the newly released 2.9. This new product is fully interactive. So it takes advantage of the new RS interactive architecture, unlike our previous Blender efforts. It includes all kinds of great new features. You can render through the viewport. It comes with a light mixer. It'll support all of these new OSL pattern shading nodes. It also supports the Llama shading workflows. And we've even added some experimental grease pencil support. And with that, I am going to welcome some of the engineers onto stage. So if I can get Sarah Forcier and Sarah Hutchinson and Katrin Bratland to come on stage, we'll talk a little bit about what we're working on. RenderMan 24. And if I could get you to introduce yourself, Sarah Forcier, and tell a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Sarah Forcier, as Wayne mentioned. I am the engineer that's been working on RenderMan for Houdini, and also adding support for Solaris.
Great. Sarah Hutchinson, can you tell a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I work on the RenderMan for Katana bridge, and yeah, do customer support and starting to mess around with some USD things as well.
Excellent. And Katrin, can you?
Hi. Yeah, I've worked on RenderMan for Maya for a long time, and lately I've been helping out with both RFH and the Solaris integration.
Excellent. Well, I think what we'll do now is I will start playing back a recording of some of the great demos you guys have brought for us. And we can just chat about some of the new features that are in this demo. So I'm going to start that now, and we'll appear at the bottom of the screen. So I think, Sarah Forcier, you can start by talking about some of the stylized look capabilities.
Sure. So yeah, as Wayne mentioned, this sort of stylized look for like non-correlated realistic rendering is going to come in commercial 24. And it's really great. It's built on plugin style, so built on top of AOVs and display filters, and super customizable, which is what you're seeing in this video. Just editing the different parameters on the display filters. You can get nice hatching based on the lighting. And it's also obviously with all the new features in the render available in the different DTCCs. So the last one was in Maya, and this is showing a different scene, but the same idea in Houdini. Once again, just changing various parameters to get the style you want. Usually this stuff is done in comp, but what's great about kind of having it in the render is you can kind of make decisions a little sooner and kind of make nice iterations, get faster looks.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about RFH here.
Yeah, so we're continuing to make improvements to RFH, the sort of ROP context. So here I'm just kind of tweaking parameters in lighting, and you're seeing the render in the render view, region, which is kind of a nice way of rendering because you have the light handles and kind of move around the scene very easily, while still having AOV access, which I think I show. Yeah, you can toggle between your AOVs.
That's great. I actually think that's a great feature.
Yeah, it's nice to just kind of be integrated into what Houdini can already do, which is really great. And here's just more working in Houdini in the viewport, kind of moving around the scene that's kind of been shared amongst the DCCs, and you'll see them. this same scene in Maya and Katana later, and just turning on the volume. It's super quick.
Yeah, nice atmosphere. So Katrin, tell me a little bit about these Solaris AOVs that you've been working on.
Yeah, so we've been putting a lot of work into displays in RenderMan. And as just a side note, like whenever you see XPU pixels, those are going through a new display driver interface. But right here, we're looking at RIS, where AOVs are now editable during interactive rendering. And in the Hydra viewport, there's a little button that lets you switch between AOV buffers. There's also a similar button now in the Maya viewport. So we've improved the RenderMan Hydra delegate so that you can switch these AOVs and edit them, and they also render to disk now.
Oh, nice. It looks like you're going to render to the actual Houdini in-play display.
Yeah, so this is going out to USD via file and then to mplay, and so you could alternatively go to file format.
Excellent. So Sarah, tell me a little bit about DPXR capabilities.
Yeah, so kind of when the first version of Solaris came out, it was super focused on this sort of interactive rendering, but eventually you're going to want to kind of have a final frame. So we added support for a bunch of different display drivers, one of which was asked for the most was deep. And so here you're seeing a deep image that was rendered directly from Solaris, brought into Nuke. So that hopefully will probably make a lot of people happy.
Yeah. So Sarah, tell me about Katana.
Yeah, so
Katana 4.0.
Yeah, this is showing the RenderMan working with the new lighting tool set that comes with Katana 4. So this is modifying 2 different lights, the template material, and showing up the ID buffer so we can bring in geometry that works as expected. So we can bring in that teapot and everything. Yeah, it's pretty great. We added a bunch of new light icons to match what's in Maya and Houdini, and to help differentiate between the different lights when you're in this mode. So this is just showing the new lighting tools. You can place things based on specular or the normal or all kinds of things. Yeah, Katana is mostly a great lighting tool. We've got all the great features, light filters. This is showing a barn light filter, and we've got built-in manipulators for them for controlling the size and the radius and everything. So we're pretty happy with the integration with Katana.
Yeah, it's really great to see all of that occurring in the viewport too. So Katrin, tell me about some of these new OSL patterns like phaser noise.
So here we're looking at a quick demo of phaser noise. ILM, this was already mentioned, but ILM used this for the Desert Asana and the Rise of Skywalker. And Pixar is going to ship its own implementation in 24. And this pattern and all our others are now in OSL, which allows you to easily switch back and forth between RIS and XPU while you're doing your look dev. And we're showing the new bump mixer. It's mixing here a phaser and a flake pattern. So the bump mixer basically replaces PXR bump, and you can wire many other patterns into the mixer. It streamlines your bump workflow, so you can manipulate everything in one place and avoid hopping around, and it's more efficient as well.
That's great. Yeah, with the new OSL, you don't have to execute all your bump code 3 times. It's just so much more efficient. Yeah, it's nice. And then I think coming up next will be a nice little depth of field of our RenderMan walking teapot here. If you want to look at one of the polls, I'm going to go ahead and publish one of them. There's a fun little teapot. So here's a little bit about OpenColor.io if you want to talk some to that, Katrin.
Yeah, so OpenColor.io is now integrated into Maya and the texture manager, and also it. So right here, what you're actually seeing is that heat maps have been re-implemented in it as OpenColor.io looks, and those are also configurable. And then just in a second, oh yeah, here's this nifty new command in it for applying a lens bloom filter. And it makes use of the ICE image manipulation API that's available for Python, which is cool.
Awesome. So Sarah Hutchinson, can you talk a little bit about Llama and the new shading networks?
Yeah, so Llama is basically a new shading system where you can layer EXDF lobes. It comes from ILM, and so it's production tested. This is it in Maya, but it's also available in all the other DCCs. Here it's we've got doing dielectric, so it comes with a bunch of different EXDFs. So we've got dielectric, we've got conductor, subsurface, everything like that. And the great thing it comes with is dispersion.
Yes,
so that's
everyone has asked for dispersion.
Yeah, everyone's asking for it. And so here we're finally delivering with Llama. So it's pretty fun to
it looks
see
great.
that in action.
Yeah. And it looks like it's pretty controllable.
Yeah, so the nice thing with Llama is it's instead of just being all in one monolithic shader like Pixar Surface, you can control things individually and kind of layer things and stack them together. So the next thing you'll see is we'll do that. I think that'll start soon. Here's showing mixing. So you can either one thing you can do is you can mix two different BXDFs together and have them be like one is on this part and then one is on that part. So this is a fractal controlling two different parts, and they're layered on top of each other instead of layered.
Instead of stacked. Yeah.
Stacked,
yeah. They're blended instead of stacked.
Yeah.
And then I think you have a demo where you're showing stacking BXDFs where they, yes. This is
Here
a Katana. Yeah.
Okay. So this one, we've got the tricolor subsurface scattering on the teapot. And then here's the sheen. So this one is just like a little shiny red layer that goes over the surface. And what I do here is I stack them so you can see how they interact with each other. So this is just like layered directly over each other, layering the lobes. But as you can see, you can also mix. So here is mixing the conductor gold metallic shader with the other one. And I love the checkerboard.
Gotta love the checkerboard.
Yes.
That's great. That's really fantastic. So now we're going to talk a little bit about XPU. This is a video demo of the difference in render speed between XPU and RAS. So one is rendering on a Quadro P6000, and the other is on RAS. And the convergence time is simply unbelievable. And we'll just show that again, just so you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like between the two. And you'll notice that the images match pretty closely. Like you can basically, the idea is you want to be able to look dev in XPU and then push your render out to RAS. So who would like to talk about XPU? I know all of you would, but I'll let you choose. Do you want to talk about it some, Katrin?
Sure. So, yeah, like coming up in a second here. Maybe I'll wait. Yeah. So here's everybody's favorite vintage Sterling automobile. So rendering here with XPU and Maya. XPU's going to be ideal for look dev in the upcoming release. So you can do all the usual things like moving around your geometry here. And then like adjusting your cameras. And then you can get in there and yeah, like this really shows off how you can like get in there and fine tune your shaders. You can get up there and tune those scratches on your car paint because of that quick convergence.
Wow, that's amazing how fast that update takes.
And then of course it's also possible to experiment with your lighting. And lighting has not been the emphasis for this release, but it still works, so you can use it in your look dev and it'll work just as you expect.
Yeah, you know, as usual, lighting is an important aspect of look dev. So it is important that you be able to, you know, here we're adjusting the specular response to the dome light. But you also want to be able to move your lights around, especially for things like cars. You know, you want to make sure you catch those specular reflections. And you can just see how quickly it updates as you're moving the light sources around. That's pretty great. And I think as we end with a last little bit of, I think we're going to rotate the dome light around just so you can get a feel for the lighting on the car. We'll end the session, and what we'll do is we'll move into a QA where we can answer questions from the audience. And we've got about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes that we can do for QA. Thank you for all those great demos. Those are fantastic. And so what I'll do is I'll host the questions, and then maybe you guys can help answer them. So let's see. Let me pick some of the first questions. So one of the questions, Sarah, this one might be for you. This is a little bit of a tough question, but they're basically asking when they can get a more robust built-in AOV definition manager for Katana. And are there plans for doing kind of more robust AOV output for Katana?
Okay. Yeah, that is a tough one to answer, but it is something that we know about that we would like to work on at some point. So it will come. We're thinking about it. Yeah.
And trying to see if there's any.
I see one question, if you don't mind me
jumping in.
There's a question here about the difference between, in RenderMan 24, between Houdini Solaris and then Houdini Object Context. And there will be differences because there's certain things that Solaris won't support at the current moment, light filters, for example. So ideally, the goal is that they will be exactly the same, but there are a couple things that are missing in Solaris.
Excellent. And then someone asks a question, is it possible to edit RenderMan's 23 files in RenderMan 24? And can you discuss the compatibility aspect of RenderMan 23 and 24? Do you mind answering that one, Katrin?
I missed that, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yowling.
Yeah, the question was, is it possible to load scenes from RenderMan 23 into RenderMan 24 and have them be compatible?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I mean, it should be just fine with all the OSL patterns and stuff. Those just interoperate just fine because on the back end they've been swapped out. So, I mean, yeah, I don't really see that there would be any problem. So there's new things that you'll be adding in 24, but all the older nodes should still work.
Right. And someone asks, is XPU coming to Houdini and does it work with volumes? Maybe that would be a good one for you to answer, Sarah.
Yes, I guess we didn't show XPU running in Houdini in this, but yes, it's going to be available and should work for volumes as well, or?
Not initially.
No, not initially, but eventually.
Yeah. So one of the things that won't be on the initial release for 24 is volumes for XPU, but we are working on it. It's just not going to make it for that first cut. And then someone asks, is there any update to sampling in V24? I've always had trouble rendering very complex scenes without noise, and they usually cap their render time and denoise with it. Maybe I'll take that one real quick. So we have worked on some improvements to sampling in RenderMan 24, and we've added a new capability of blue noise. But this new sampling technique is not to improve noise for final renders, but to actually significantly improve noise for interactive renders. So your end result, the end noise after rendering to convergence for a long period of time will be the same, but your initial short number of samples, say up to 8 samples, will look significantly better. So in your interactive renders where you start out with just a few number of samples, it'll look a lot less noisy, and the result will look a lot better. So let's see. Someone asks if there's a viewport denoising solution. Can you talk a little bit about denoising in our image tool, Katrin?
So denoising does not work in the viewport, but it does. There is an interactive denoising that you can do in it. So that's basically your option right now. It's rendering to it.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of folks want interactive rendering in the viewport, and it's likely to be a feature after 24. The interesting thing is each of the DCCs have interesting frame buffers, and integrating the denoiser into each of those viewports is a tricky business. But we can make a unified effort to denoise in our own image display tool, and for now you can get fairly decent interactive denoising if you render to the image tool.
There's been a question about the Llama materials and the differences between the Llama layering system and the Pixar layering system, or Pixar layer. And I think there's a whole entire session, I think later.
Yes, later today.
Today, that'll go into super depth into that. But I would say one thing, at least from my experience using it, is instead of dropping down kind of like the Pixar surface with like a ton of parameters, it's kind of nice to have those module nodes and say like, oh, I just want like diffuse and like dielectric and wire them up. So it's kind of a very intuitive way of working.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other difference is that you can layer the layer stack. So you can do the layering loads over each other better than just the decal type layering like you can do with Pixar layer.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a much more robust layering system than what you get with the Pixar layered surface. And I think that's why everyone's quite excited about it, because it's going to make your layered materials just so much more. It's the focus of this new technique, is the layering aspects of it. Hence the name layered materials. It's great. And then someone asked, is there a plan to enable inter-app workflows for lights and shaders, Maya to Houdini, for example? That is there ability to share, export, import lights and shaders without having to go through the preset browser? Is that one you would like to address, Katrin, in terms of USD and where we're headed there?
I guess, I mean, there's, I guess it could happen through USD, but I mean, we haven't really pursued workflows for this yet. So that is something we could explore.
Yeah, I know that a full inter-op pipeline sitting atop USD requires a significant investment in USD from each of the DCC vendors, and they're moving in that direction. Houdini was there first with Solaris 18.5, and you can currently emit USD files with lights and shaders and materials and geometry, and you can ingest that into Katana. As a matter of fact, that's how we did a lot of our demos today, was by taking a scene, exporting it in USD, and then re-importing it in Katana. And then, Autodesk is working on new USD plugins and integrations for Maya, and the Foundry is working on new USD integrations for exporting things in future versions of Katana as well. And so I think in the coming year to 2 years, you'll be able to do this interrupt just kind of out of box much more easily with USD as that foundation. So we've got a question for a few more minutes for questions. Let's see. trying to find some good questions. Okay, someone asked that, someone noted that Llama supports a version of the full Disney BXDF. And is there also available a new standard Disney RenderMan BXDF? Sarah Hutchinson, do you mind talking a little bit about our new Disney BXDF in addition to Llama?
Yeah, so I guess I don't know too many of the details, but there is a new one that's with the newer, it's a more full PXR Disney with the newer paper.
Yes. Yeah, it has the ability to do glass and more translucence and a more physically realistic metals. And of course, you can also implement that same BXDF in Llama itself by combining the various BXDF nodes, which is kind of cool. So, and I think we will grab one more question off of the questions here. Let's go back down. Go back down to the bottom so that let's see. Will people be able to get teapots this year? Yes, you can get teapots this year. We posted an augmented reality teapot, and there's a link in the questions on how to go and download your virtual teapot. But let's see if we can answer one more that, let's see. Is the stylization capabilities going to be available in the non-commercial version of RenderMan? And Sarah's shaking her head no, so I'll let her go ahead and talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, so it'll only be available in commercial RenderMan. So short answer there.
Yeah. It's a partnership with some other folks doing a lot of development, and to cover the cost of that development, that technology is going to be only available in the commercial version for now. So, all right. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for the great presentation and the great answers to our questions. We hope to see you in additional future sessions, of which, keep in mind, if you're registered for future sessions, you need to leave this session and then go to attend the next session, which starts at 10 o'clock. All right. Thank you very much for listening to What's New in RenderMan 24. Talk to you later. Bye.